13 minutes after the hour 7, right on the Ultimate Radio. I did let you know earlier on that I do have a guest with me this morning, and I do have with me Dr. Peter Baofu. He, like I said, you spell it B-A-O-F-U. Dr. Baofu, good morning. Welcome to the Ultimate Radio. Welcome to Lesotho.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
It's such a pleasure to get to have you in our Ultimate Studios this morning. Let us move on to something very interesting, though we'll not go deeper into that. It has to do with Africa and democracy. There would be people who would say African countries don't have democracy, or they're struggling when it comes to practicing democracy. What was your observation? What has been, you've done a lot of research. What else would you say is the issue? Because fine, there would be democracy. As you've mentioned, lots of other countries in Europe as well still struggling. They've gone into voting, but then after that, there's still a certain issue that people have issues about. Even in Africa as well, that's what we've been seeing. What do you think we could do? What seems to be the problem?
Okay, let me give you one specific example. I think that's a very good question. The reason I mentioned this example is because I have seen so many times in my visit in so many African countries, time again and again and again and again. They have an election, they have a new opposition, and they come in, they govern, and they pay more or less the same thing all over again. During the campaign, they make all this kind of promises, rhetoric, you feel great. Oh wow, change is coming, change is coming. Now no more corruption, no more this, no more poverty. Wow, it's so wonderful, let me vote for him. And after they come in and all of a sudden, the same thing all over again, and you come on the street and riot and say, okay, kick him out. And that's so I don't think that's really the issue here. The issue is the mindset over here. In the longer term, I have several proposals in my publications, but one of them I just mentioned over here because you asked. I think that it's time for Africa, it doesn't matter North Africa, Western Africa, Central Africa, Eastern Africa, Southern Africa, is to ask the question, what exactly is your identity? Because in many of the cases, when you talk like this, you are borrowing Western notions of political system as the standard for you to judge and compare. And then if you do not measure up, then you feel bad. And then you say that you are bad, you are primitive, you are behind, you are hopelessly underdeveloped and all that. I don't buy any of this. I don't buy any of this. I think that it's time for you as an African to ask yourself, what exactly do you want?
Or what really works for us?
Yes, for you. Not that you have to go to the IMF, the World Bank, or the Chinese bank, or the Japanese bank, and go to the this and ask them to give money to you and help you out and say, whatever they ask you to do, you do it. Because if you do what they ask you to do, that means that you will be behaving, you are more or less following them. Remember, when you follow other people, when you learn from other people, that's also a good thing about the to learning. But I'm just saying, then you forget about you. You can never be ahead if you follow all the time, if you copy all the time. It's time for you to think, what actually do we Africans, or in this case, people in Lesotho want? Not that you have to go to the UN, go to this and this and this, the IMF, the World Bank, and say, okay, what should we do? We need democracy. We need this and this. Then we do that because you said that we should do that. So even your question, by the way, you are using a Western question to understand your own country. The question you ask is a Western country. It's a Western-centric question with so much assumption about democracy. You are looking at yourself on the basis of the Western mirror. You look at the mirror, not the mirror based in Africa, but the mirror which is constructed in Western world. And then you use the mirror to look at your face. But then you are comparing, but then who are you then? You cannot be ahead. That's why you need to get out of that trap. And that's important. Now, this doesn't mean that you should not learn from anyone. I never said that. You learn as much as you want. I say, who are you? Look at me. I learn from women too. I learn from the feminists. But in the end, I don't want to be like them. Because I know that I'm not a woman. I'm a man. So you know who you are.
Would you say, well, I'm correct. I just want to understand whether I understand you well. Where I could take, or we could take, certain things from democracy that we feel may work for us and make use of them in order to improve our own country, in order to improve our own continent. But still, it's more like serving, you see where you say, but this and this and this will not work for us.
that is good, but that is also bad. Because when you say that, you say, why should we learn something from democracy and then we can use them for Africa? But then why should you not ask the same question in the opposite direction? Why should you also learn something from non-democracy? You are condemning non-democracy and now you are championing democracy and you are saying to yourself you want to learn something, but in a way you are trapped in that thinking again. So if you really want to learn, if you really have an open mind, you should open to all. Okay, don't think that you just pick one and say to yourself, I want to learn something from that, but then you are impoverishing yourself because now you are dismissing everything else and choose that as the golden standard. And all of a sudden you become blind, even though you are trying to learn something. So I'm saying, go beyond that too. So my comment is very inspirational. I want to take you one level up, in fact, 2 level ups further. Because if you think like that, you stick in the same problem that you had before. You see that it's time for you to get out. Not just you have to use another one, but you repeat the same mistake. But this time it's just another word. Before you have whatever you call the local system, now you have the Western democracy. It's just another word, another standard. But what's your problem? You have to face your own problem. And that's why I always, but this is just another analogy. I always tell the feminists, I debate with them all the time. I say, look, you can blame men all the time for your problem. But at the end of the day, there's women's problem that you have to take care of. Men have a lot of problem too, but they don't blame women for all the problem that men have. So I said that it's time for you. So who are you? Again, the same question again. You ask for liberation. Fine, that's very amazing. It's very interesting. But if you stop blaming like that, then you don't know who you are. And nowadays you see a lot of feminists, they want to copy and behave like a man. Do you know that? They want to talk like a man, aggressive like a man. But I said to yourself, but how about you as a woman? Now you look down on yourself as a woman then. Now in America nowadays, there are some women, they want to have children. They want to stay home to nurture their children. And the feminists say, you should go out and work. And they don't want you to have children. I said, wait a minute, how do you forget you as a woman? Why do you just have a sexual surgery? You become a man from now on, then you should stop blaming all that. So I'm saying the same thing about Africa. For many years, they have been blaming the European, the colonial powers. Now they blame on corruption in the government. Now they blame the Chinese too. Wait a minute. How about you? Can you look into yourself? I think that's the most important question about Africa. It's not just about Africa for everyone on earth. You talk about the Middle East, you talk about Latin America, you talk about South Asia, you talk about Southeast Asia. It's the same question all over again. The only difference is that the Europeans and Americans, for example, for a long time, they have their own identity set up. And they follow their own identity to do that. But you have been colonized and so much that now you cannot even get out of that identity. Every time you say something, ask some question, it's always on the basis on someone else. How about you?
Wow. So
there is the deep-rooted problem. It's not about democracy or election. Go ahead, have 1,000 more elections. I don't think that's going to change much of anything unless you address some of this most fundamental issue. So I don't pay attention to elections that much. Look at Venezuela now. There's a problem about election too. You think the new guy is going to come in and I tell you now, a few years from now, there'll be people on the street again and trying to kick out that guy. It's the same history repeating all over again. Election is not really. You have to look into the deeper roots of the problem.
Yes. Thank you so much. It really has been a pleasure being with you in Ultimate Skews this morning. I'm really hoping that you will go out there and enjoy our beautiful country.
So thank you very much again. I do enjoy.
Thank you. Looking at the time right now, it is 20 minutes before we get to the hour 8. We will be right back with you after this.